Chilly here with Sirius Dallas Moon. This is so our moon day, and the moon has just crossed Neptune. Um, Ascendant ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter 23 degrees Cancer, approaching Jupiter return. Again, I wanted to open with an energy reading, but wait. Approaching Jupiter Procyon. Ace lapsus. Um, Mid-heaven, 15 degrees Virgo, conjoining Ketu and the Venus, and Mercury 29 degrees Libra, separating from opposition to Aries and Chiron. Somebody has an Eros there, I don't know. Okay, first of all, some good vibes, some joyous energy, and where to begin? Okay, this is energy reading because what I'm getting, first of all, we are on a mundane level, on a collective of purging out the rituals, the manifestations, the any dumb fuckery that was done on a humanity level. Now, here's the thing: there's a lot of mimicry, a lot of weird rituals. Okay, they try to bring energy frequency down. And what happens when this happens? People begin to explore with how to raise their frequency. How, suddenly they look at their emotions, for example, and say, okay, is it me or is it something that is not me that I feel? And sometimes it can be just normal permeability to energy, and sometimes even more than that. Okay, particularly in societies where they do weird rituals. Okay, so here is what is on. Um, I think I said I come from lineage. My mother would say, I just don't pay attention. Now, I learned from my mother. I didn't know what's evil eye. I was like, I live my life. That's it. This makes for the people to work harder to try to lower frequency until I became aware of all the weird ritual practices that are done. And then, by that, I begin to learn to negate them. But what I'm getting on an energy level for the collective, first of all, the collective is going through that right now. Every time there's spiritual warfare or anything like that, then people generally do awaken because they fight for their life and they become aware of what was an impediment on their life. Okay, and this is Neptune Saturn. It's going to get worse until people get what was the ritual and they already begin to erect boundaries. Um, For example, in my other homeland, was a politician wanted to erect boundaries together with many people in Europe to immigration. It stirs up. Where did it start? Why did it start? Economic hitmanship. What were the conditions in the other countries? But also, where the costumes that they wanted to purge the immigration because of? Yes, do they also happen within the elite? Um, and and this is where basically entire world is becoming awakened. Wait a second, child sacrifice is no good. What about satanic ritual abuse? Oh, no good. Child marriage, such a terrible thing. Is we should abolish that also in the Mormon, in the satanic cults, and also between boys in the secret societies. Married to a boy, marriage to a boy, and so on. Um, Sexual boundary violation, very terrible thing. It also happened to boys and to men, and it also happens with elite society. Elite society. Those people that worship the Baal, horrid, horrid, terrible. Also terrible when it happens in the Vatican. um, And this is where people begin to, many people, for example, I came to astrology, I came from academia. And I was looking at the astrology, and I was wondering, I didn't know that there exists such a thing as mundane astrology. So the curious child me wondered, oh, how lovely it would be if we would have like an astrology, but of like world events. and and then I began to learn that I was not aware that of the term psychic attack. Now here's the thing: there is both the shadow malefic things and the shadow good things. For example, certain people had good astral experiences and they didn't even associate that this was astral. and and a person doesn't know what it is, they don't know what to do with that, and they just go about their life happy. Alternatively, a person goes about their life and there's like, this is boundary violation. And this, when it's a problem, of course, people begin to erect boundaries. So, and as people set these boundaries, there are many things that begin to unravel. And what I'm getting for the collective here, there is some energy. And this pertains particularly to the people who have outer planets and or Saturn related to their relationships. Because in many ways, it's not their fault, or that they're having like Pisces ascendant, Taurus ascendant, and Cancer ascendant, that are having outer planets, and Gemini ascendant, because they're not done with Uranus and Taurus, that are having outer planets in the 12th house, which is also bad pleasures, but also hospitals and jails, monasteries, seclusion, isolation, the dream state, and hidden wealth. There's not just hidden enemies in the 12th, there are also hidden friends, or people that are actually in your favor and you don't see it until something crosses the 12th house. Only now I have this eurekas. But this is where how should I say that? What I'm getting is that somebody, and we have a lot of double whammies. In astrology, we call it double whammy. When somebody's planet fall into somebody's 12th house and the other person as well. Somebody has a Saturn, think about it, I'm Pisces ascendant, Saturn is going to my first house, but is opposing my 7th house. For Virgo placements, then I'm their Saturn. I'm their karma. The good karma, the bad karma, and karma is just the implications of actions. For example, that I wore sneakers and did athletics in the gym and then swam for I don't know how many hours, then I was neglecting and thought that athlete foot is something sexy that athletes have. Then I began to treat that, disgusting as it may be, I began to treat that, so I had to say goodbye to the sneakers. And it's my story. That's what and I had to say hello to essential oils, vitamins, minerals, and the things that I was doing with nutrition that were not really, they were helping me to get a degree, but they were also getting me addicted to coffee. Not black coffee, the coffee with the milk, so that I would not be so hungry. And while I was going to the gym and working out, supposedly maintaining my health. Um, this was very stupid. But the implications of that is that I spend now sometimes hours at bathing my feet, taking sure everything is neat and so on, and preparing with the oils. Why hours? Because there were actual rituals done so that I wouldn't treat my toenail fungi. Why? Because on a mat, on a spirit level, sits the lower frequencies that the fungal cults want. I'm not joking. Think about it, the mafia. They have the business of money laundering. is a bakery, or not all bakeries and not all pizzas, or a pizza. Now, what's unique about a bakery and a pizza? It is comfort food that is very susceptible to yeast overgrowth. And those things are correlated with addictions to sugar, addiction. Think about Coca-Cola. Actually, this is something to correct, because one of the astrologers that inspired water expands upon cooling, assassinated astrologer Nikola Stoyanovich, he worked for Coca-Cola, amongst many other things, and did the compatibility of the moons so that people will feel like family. But Coca-Cola produced something that they replaced the cocaine with sugar. Now you have to understand, if sugar was chosen to replace cocaine, it's probably that potent. And yes, also, for example, I do astrology. Before I have business set to astrology, there are a lot of people doing astrology working for MK often. And that affects for the way that astrology is done. So I have to sift the muck from the wheat from the muck, because also when it comes to my astrological teachings, how much of the lots or concrete event astrology is basically to do with courses, because Saturn can be dedication, and it can be courses. Uh, and I have to ask this about basically my vocation, so that I sift the wheat from the muck. And Uranus is also revolution in the field of astrology. And then I'm one of the astrologers that don't work with MK often. So yet another reason to target me. Yet another reason. Um, yes, but this is also a part of the very reading. There is on the collective, there's some people that their way to generate energy and relations was completely toxic. It's not their fault. And what happened for the collective is somebody, whether it was because they fell in lust or because they simply wanted to harvest energy. They might not even be for the same, I don't know, even sexual preference to that level. And maybe not. I don't divine. Actually, I had an astrologer that was receiving questions about gender identity, and she did a Horavi chart also for her own gender and gender preferences. I'm not an expert in that. Um, then, yeah. Later, a way started in 7th of October when she refused to address the ritual abuse that happened also within Israel. I'm recording. Um, yes. But what I'm getting for the collective is that somebody came from a place that their way to generate, whether it's energy or connection, was beyond toxic. And at the same time, they were scheduled to go through uh, 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 very likely Saturn. Very likely Saturn, or can be also Pluto, because Pluto is in Saturn sign, and can be also something with Aries. Some of those placements. But can be something else, and that maybe, I don't know, another thing going over Saturn, but I'm getting that this is a long transit. It's a couple of years transit, it's not a momentary transit. For some, it may be momentary and still relevant. But the thing is that there was a long trajectory of generating connections through all the types of the occult rituals that are going to be purged with the yeasty and fungal structures. And that person fell enmeshed, whether they were supposed to even traffic, whether they were supposed to do something evil, or whether they were supposed to harvest on energy or whatnot. They fell enmeshed, both because they were energetically dependent, but also they began to do that through trying to see what the relations of the other person were. Now, here's the thing. The healthy form of that is that when somebody is aligned to correct the way they do the seventh house, then they are yes, they are aligned to see the many ways in which they were doing wrong, and they're also genuinely aligned to see for what is the Gegenüber, okay, what is the person in the seventh going through, went through, and so on and so forth. And here it happens through a wound. So that can be a Chiron wound, Chiron moon, all the things that I'm talking about. Uranus Chiron. Okay, I have Uranus Chiron right now. So I have the astrology of Chiron transit in the fourth house, is associated with the seventh, so housing and partnership and so on, upbringing, lineage, motherlands, fatherlands. And what I'm getting is that they fell enmeshed, but all the ways that they were doing to get the energy of the other person and or get the attention of the other person or maintain a connection were not. And I think about, for example, 2007, I was the person who was completely unaware. In front of me was a person that was doing energy harvesting, probably. Yes. But they were at the same time trying to curate relations. and and this is the thing. I remember the thing they said is that you want connection. And at that time I already didn't want, I just wanted to stop, to set a boundary, to and so on. So now, of course, I would tell them, but essentially, of course, I need connection, they need connection, and so on. And they could see the places in which I was doing wrong for, they could see the places where I did not know how to form connection, and I could see the places where they did not know how to align, let's say, the heart with the sexual energy, okay, or attraction, being desired, and being loved and loving. And both of us were on that journey, beyond holy journey, okay, sexual boundary violation, energy harvesting, toxic things that came up from both of us. But this was but this is something that for the collective there is not a repetition of the timeline, but in a way somebody is scheduled to become aware of the wrong ways in which they were doing relations. But the thing is that the way they do that, they almost enter the sphere of the previous partners of the other person. Now this can be unconsciously because we tend to see the previous partners in the unresolved things with the previous partnerships or relations tend to float, and there is a natural inclination to want to resolve that, but then the rituals and things that they are coming from are meant to entrap. And what I get is that that person became completely enmeshed and tried to get the attention, and they're not the only person, that there was a trajectory. So for you, the collective, you might be that person, or you might be the person that actually found the healthy structures of relations and is trying to apply them. And if that is the case, then basically you are shedding the cult-like everything that affected your relationship, your energy, your abundance, and so on and so forth, all the way to being survivor of ritual abuse. Now the energy that is trying to get at you, whatever the reason they were sent, they become both energetically dependent or co-enmeshed, and the only way out of that entrapment is to shed the cult that they basically came from, and they might be at this time, because it's Saturn, it might be either they are, around 28, 20 to 35, and then before they take on a more serious trajectory, they have to. Some people are even 33 that they're supposed to have certain initiation, but before they take that trajectory, they need to see in full force what would that entail for their family, for their children, for their future spousey, for their life with their future spousey. For others, they are of older generation, and it can go all the way from Saturn maturation to second Saturn return, or in between phases, where they are going through these things. Okay. Yes, no. And in those cases, they already did things quite horrendous. Let's just put it that way. Even more than the younger generation. Now, here's the thing. That person that became enmeshed with the energy, they have no way to get that energy with those outdated practices and rituals. There's no way, because they would need to win the heart of someone that is not succumbing to love scams. They can say, and not because they don't feel, but because they say, for love, they have to honor my energy, my boundaries, my sensuality. And um, and what is not loving, okay, has no place. Human sacrifice has no place in love. Pet sacrifice has no place in love. Blood sacrifice, okay. I'm not talking about people that, let's say, they menstruate, so they return the blood to the soil. That's sacred, that's lovely. I'm talking about the blood as an offering of sacrifice, the blood of bloodletting by harming. And those things come between relations, and this is what I'm getting. That energy that became enmeshed, they're basically experiencing the experience of trying to get into somebody's attention. And that can be, it can even be a couple of people. One can be an old lover that never got to be with that person. Remember the channeling I did for the eternally single person. And it's a Sedna story. Because Sedna wouldn't go with the occult. That's why she didn't find the touch of a man that is lovely. Because they were warlocks. But it's not the fact that they did magic. It's the fact that they were trying to harvest on the energy of the woman and to control the woman. Also for the women that do that to the men, okay, because there are women that do that to the men, they're also having moments of reckoning that that's not going to work for them. Both on indigenous level and on elite level. And as they're having these moments of reckoning, what is happening in the collective is that the energies to try to get at a person to cult-like ways are having are facing the consequences of the fact that this is just not the way to love. And when a person is connected with their own self, which is the process of connecting with their own self, their own needs. Now here's the thing, those people that try to energy harvest, sometimes they are more connected with what they need or want. And it's a good thing to know what you need and want. The way that they go about getting that is the problem. Okay? You need to have orgasm, you need to have sex, you need to have a lively energy. It's a normal need, it's not a bad need. But going about that through the trajectory, you need to have psychic awareness. Psychic awareness is not from bloodletting sacrifice, but actually more from embodiment and connection. Now, I know the Aztecs did it, the Mayans did it, and then they were destroyed. And what was left sometimes was only a cookbook. Why a cookbook? Because the highest frequency was there when they were preparing food that is nourishing. And then the cookbook was left without the rituals that were doing on the food. So the only pure thing that was left is the cookbook from societies upon societies. And the many rituals that they do are not yielding. Because even if they go, let's say Baphomet is about, or Lucifer is about awakening. What happens with the awakening? Let's say I awaken to the fact that I need to do a pedicure. I awaken, so I take off the sneakers and I say, okay, let's do pedicure. I go to do pedicure, ultra, 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 and a lady tells me that I have a lifting finger when I have a toenail fungi. It's about, it doesn't color the nail yet, but it's the beginning of, yeah, put some, tea tree oil and it will be okay. Now, I'm an aromatherapist. I understand that this is deep stagnation. I say, okay, can't rely on this gas. I have to make a time to tend to my feet. Now, every workplace, even if there is a chair, I won't sit all day, otherwise I'll get a bum like, not like Beyonce. Beyonce works about the muscles. Okay? But also, but also, um, if I want to be able to sometimes sit, sometimes walk, there has to be feet. So I dedicate time, Saturn, to my feet. This is Saturn in Pisces. And then I see that the attempts to prevent me from getting the correct minerals, getting the food, getting the oils. So I insist even more. And now I understand that it's not that I've neglected my feet. It's that there were rituals done so that I will neglect my feet and so that I will not address this. And even the people, let's say holistic practitioner that told me, look at your feet, tend to this, tend to that. Even they were trying to do rituals to narrow my steps or to prevent me from growing. Now the natural self went, hey, you need to take care of this feet, you need to take care of this hallux, vagus, whatever. But all of the teachings that they had were, oh, those are people that tend to blame their environment. Because the teachings of even the holistic medicine was about people that were growing in environments where there was still ritual satanic abuse and ritual abuse. That, of course, the environment. Now, if they try to sacrifice a person or to derive an energy from a person to control a person, then of course that is affecting the bone structure. And then from the personal self, the taking of responsibility or the accountability from their part is to heal themselves. But then when they deal with the environment that tries to keep them from healing themselves, basically to cause them to be sick, to prevent them from having financial dependence. Because when they begin to tend to their feet, something else, that there's a new path. Because when they begin to generate abundance, there's a new path. Now, each and every person has a new path, but that path negates the many rituals that were done in the environment, in the society. So for you, the collective that is the recipient of this reading, and people try to get at you with all the wrong ways, then you are the one that is a point of change in the environment. While the fungal structures try to change it back, to draw it back to fungal structures of control structures, cult-like structures, indigenous and global. People awaken to both their indigenous practices. You see what happened? Think about Palestine. Many Palestinians, even way before 7th of October, they had to escape Gaza. They went to school, they went to here, they went to there. And some of them have mixed families. So they went with the other family. And then, let's say they're sitting in Ireland. Ireland, very close both to the Jewish story and the Palestinian story. But then they see something. Their Irish part is more aware of emotional intelligence. The Palestinian part, not so. A lot of Asians that came to United States, and United States is with all, it's full of MK Ultra and MK Often, but it's also full of reckoning that people need to tend to their psychological well-being. The Slavs called it softy, but then 200 million Russians in the Second World War dead. Why? Because they do intelligence by raping people. Now, with America, they also do that. But the public is more aware. This is why the Me Too, it came from United States. And as people set a boundary, they understand that that little, it's only just a humor, it's only just this. No, it was a mockery ritual to harvest energy. Now, here is what is happening for the collective, is that those that are busy trying to study what went in your past relation, what went right, what went wrong, because to them it is also to do with their own past and their own relations. They're coming to this reckoning that no matter who they are, you're gonna be setting the boundaries. Now, for a lot of you, there was this very right awareness that those are boundaries that no one should be even put in position to have to set. In fact, when I escaped the apartment in Arad for the realtor, I said to him, these are boundaries that I'm not even supposed to be in a place or position where I even need to set them. You see, there are boundaries where people cross the boundary and they just weren't aware. Let's say I did not know that I snore. If I have a thing, if I open or close the door, this can... Yes, I did not, until I lived with roommates, I had no idea that if I open the door and close the door, The neighbors from the next street, they, they might hear that. Now, an athlete works early in the morning. I'm still okay. I had a friend that had a roommate, and she used to do this fruit shake. She was this vegan, but with raw fruits. I tried that once too, and she had the morning shake. Now here's the thing: shake is also chic. A sheikh in Arab is basically cult leader that he does rituals on women. I know this from Bedouin girls. But that person, he wanted to be like a sheikh, sheikh, whatever. And that lady, she was just not paying attention. She was grey rocking him. That now I didn't even think that that person would try to do that to me because I thought it is so obvious that I'm not into that. That didn't prevent him from trying. And a moment of silence for the people that try to do those rituals. On women that are not into that type of dumbfuckery. And so, especially if they try to convince someone that they are into something that they're not into. I had a story for where there was, I was put in trauma bond and a lot of rituals, so that I would not speak about the children. Everything was working fine except that I couldn't stop talking about the children. Because it's like, hey, you're hot, you're cute, but one thing stands in between your addiction to endocrine. She did not just say that. Yes, she did just say that. Is she going to change? Yes, of course she's going to change. Changing every day to worse and worse. And not only that, she's not waiting for the other person to change. Or for some people, if you are the guy in this person, in the guy person in this mix, you're not waiting for the witch to change, and she's not waiting for the warlock to change. She's changing her life, and for the guys that are in those situations, the guys are changing their lives. Because there can be some women, I tell you. But they learned from the warlocks. The warlock learned from the witches. Because it's all a matter of whether somebody operates on that lower frequency. And I don't blame them because it's usually the result of a lot of torture and abuse. But also, we need to set a boundary to that, so people can learn more adaptable ways of creating connection. Now, here's the thing: many of you are the eternal single. Okay. Um, and so, what that type of, what is happening in the collective is that somebody got, for whichever the motives, they could have even been trying to do a trafficking campaign. But to get to do the lover boy, they really had to understand what is going on. What would make that person fall in love and stay in love? And that does not work with trafficking cults, trafficking scams, cult-like relationships, cult-like beliefs, cult-like wealth practices. It's antithetical to wealth, basically. Energy harvesting and all the sour motives. Okay, what's not love is just not. And this is a very terrible way to learn that somebody is true and real. Now, I really have a big thank you to Light, because she has been a beacon of light in showing me things that I was completely unaware of. And she's an excellent light on YouTube. She has the book Sad Gold, she has a new book coming out, and she has been really, really excellent in learning the hidden dynamics that people would get entrapped in relationships, also with to do with occult. Um, and so, but what I'm seeing for this collective of people is that um, that this is about the reckoning. Is people have to deal with the ways that they have been going about things in the wrong way, but this pertains to their religion. In fact, I think it looks like a little bit of a summary of a lot of things that Light said, but because I'm dealing with that, then I feel that coming up in a collective energy as well. Um, and I guess a lot of people that are doing those, whether it's energy reading, astrology, or whatnot, or even relational consultation, they might see those trajectories arising in the collective. Um, and 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 that is not an easy reckoning. This is a very profound. Some people have had more access to deal with the shame that they had around these practices. Um, but this is also important that for you, the collective, it means that a lot of you um, had to set boundaries that you, to begin with, was never even supposed to set, and yet you set them, and that retrieves not only your own wealth, well-being, sense of connection in life, a sense of sovereignty and sense of self, and it also means that um, it threatens those that only know the way of energy harvesting, because they have to learn coping mechanisms, that their coping mechanisms are going to expire with Saturn Neptune. And for many of them, it's not only a relationship here or a lost trafficking campaign, it is their religion, their worldview, their entire trauma. Because what they try to do is to put the collective in trauma and entrap them in traumatic relations to harvest energy. And the collective says no. Our parents got divorced for a reason, not for us to marry wrong, and not for us to stay in if we committed wrong, not for us to stay in such commitments. To correct what was wrong in relationship, fantastic. But if that what was wrong is called, then to correct that as well. And if that is energy harvesting or the type of energy that is done or was or whatnot, then to correct that as well. Particularly around perceptions to do with intimacy, which turns to finances as well, and all the hidden things, all the hidden control tactics. People both, and this is of all genders, okay? The women that were doing ritual to keep a man with them, or women that were doing rituals and they were doing that because they were afraid to lose. Okay, maybe they were even afraid to be sacrificed. And there are men that were doing that for similar reasons, which puts the entire society on a trajectory to see that those rituals have a telos, they have an expiration rate, a date. And they affect not just the real estate, but also the living, the housing, domestic violence, challenge to grow when a person lives in a certain place. And sometimes it's like, oh, move to another place. But when that is global, then there has to be a transmutation of the energy, the rituals, into a frequency of love. Love that is actually loving. Honoring of sexual sovereignty. Honoring of life energy.